Live now.
Welcome to the Node.js Community Technical Steering Committee meeting for January 31st, 2018. We're going to follow our standard agenda, which starts out with seeing if there's any announcements from the members. Sounds like we don't have any announcements this week. So
the only announcement I have is that I'm going to fill out a moderation team update. I'll put it in the issue and in the minutes, and you can read it later. I'm not going to bother talking about it here.
Okay, sounds good. So other than that, we'll move on to the standard agenda. So using the issues tag TSC agenda. So the first one is issue number 18248. Titled Document Asserts Weak Map Set Behavior. So let me just open that up. Is anybody on the call the person who added it to the agenda? Okay, I'm just looking to see who it was, to see if we can nominate somebody who has context.
Looks like it was Ruben Bridgewater that put it on the agenda.
Okay. Has anybody that we have in the call been participating in the discussion? Just looking through to see, I guess Matteo and Joey and have been involved.
You have any of them here?
No. Just trying to see if I can pull out if there's a specific question. I don't think I can pull out the context quickly enough to do it justice. So I'd suggest that at this point, let's, take it back to GitHub, consider a request that we take a look and be ready to discuss again next week, unless anybody else has other suggestions.
I'd also suggest that perhaps we should invite Ruben as an observer guest to participate in this one issue.
Okay, that makes sense to me too. Okay, so Rich, invite Ruben as guest. Discuss this one issue. Okay. Just taking a few notes in discussions. So take. Okay, so I think we should move on to the next issue, which is 18158. Delete process.m values set to undefined. Okay. So the discussion has been around adding changing the behavior that when you basically, I think, trying to set the properties on process.m to undefined, or with the thought that that was trying to remove them, they would actually end up removing them, as opposed to what happens today, which is, I think they get replaced with a string that says undefined. And Timothy was commenting that he thinks it's just too big a behavioral change, and I think that's why it's on the TSC agenda.
Is it possible to delete from process.env? Like using the delete operator? Because that would seem like a more reliable potential way than trying to set it to undefined.
I wonder if in general on issues where people who are not on the TSC put them on the agenda, if we should make an extra special point to invite them. Like it would probably be really helpful to have Timothy here, for example, and the person.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think how we could do that easily.
I put this on the agenda.
So. Right, okay. So Matteo, can you?
Yeah, definitely. So the situation is that process.m value when passing them to child process are inherited, right? However, if was set to undefined, it would be set to the string undefined. Okay. Instead, this removes the value. The problem is this is typically affects most of the time. This affects child processes and so on. So in my the reason why I put it on the TSC was because 8 days ago, this PR got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 LGTM, and Timothy put it as requested changes, and he said that it doesn't approve what is being in here. Okay. Claiming that is actually fine, that is setting it to undefined, it will set the value to the undefined string.
I think then the concern was that it's too big a change. So I guess,
yes, exactly.
At least what I would read from it is that he thinks that it's going to affect people negatively, right?
Yes, exactly.
I think this might already affect people negatively the way it is, though. So that's
yeah. Well,
we'd have to really dig into how much.
So this is why I put it on the TSC agenda, because it's a kind of discussion is stuck, and some numbers on the TSC thinks that that's a good thing to do, and so while Timothy doesn't think so. So that's the only reason why I put it on the TSC. Like, I agree that this change should land, so I'm not. But it has been stuck for some days, so I think it's we can decide if we want to move it forward or not.
I guess if we could gather more data that, like, to me, that the reason not to do it would be is if we do think it's going to break a bunch of people, right? Like, if it doesn't break people, it seems like the new behavior is the right thing. But if it was going to break a whole bunch, then that would be a reason not to.
So from reading Timothy's comment, I wonder if his suggestion isn't to, because we already have an issue with non-UTF environment variables. If some sort of if we don't need a different API for getting variables altogether for the future, regardless, and it might be better to do something in a new API.
Right. So you're thinking the suggestion is leave it as it is, but provide a new API that does something.
Yeah, I think it's the exception here is just like leave it alone. Which is fine as well, by the way. Like, it's, I'm just that's the reason why I put it on the agenda. Like, if we want to, again, this is not going to move any forward at this point without some intervention from the TSC. So we might invite Timothy next time to talk about it if we want. But that's about it. Also, I think Michael Dasso Targos has joined, so maybe we can talk him as well a little bit about this.
Michael, where we're talking about issue 18-158, which was a pull request you submitted to change the process.env. Do you have more contact? Like, we're discussing it because Timothy subjected. Do you have more to add to the discussion?
I don't think I have more to add, no. I opened this pull request because of another change that was made to child process, to how the environment of the child process can be set. There was a recent change in this pull request to ignore undefined values. And in the discussion, it was said that it would be good if we land this change to do the same for process.env. And that's why I opened the process.env pull request.
Right. So this makes it more consistent with that other case, right?
Yes.
So I guess we have a couple options. We could ask Timothy to come next week, make a decision. We could take it back to GitHub. It doesn't sound to me like there's nothing that's pressing to say we have to push this forward quickly, one way or the other necessarily, right? So what do people want to do? Do we want to invite Timothy and discuss the next meeting, or push back to GitHub and ask that people have discuss and comment there?
I do not see what's there to discuss, but yes, we can invite Timothy and call for a vote on next round, I would say.
Okay, so invite Timothy to next meeting to discuss, then call. Okay. Any more comments, discussion on that front? Okay, let's move on to the next issue, which is issue 18131. ESM, provide named exports for all built-in libraries. Just going to see. So Matteo, you added that to the agendas. Oh, wait a sec. Maybe I just hadn't opened yet. Let's see who added that to the agenda.
Surprised Miles has not commented on this yet.
Did I add it, or
I'm just looking like, yeah, I was just looking at the other one that but I don't see.
No, I think it was James.
James, okay.
So the main problem here in the ESM is that it breaks how we do deprecations, right?
Yes.
Didn't we discuss this last week? I mean,
I mentioned it last week, 2 weeks ago, but then it was too early and we decided to discuss it again or something like that.
Yeah, I think we need the framing of like what's the specific thing that those in the discussion need us to weigh in on, right? I'm tempted to defer until we have either James or Miles in the meeting. Any objection to that?
There is no urgency, but this is a very important question. So we might as well, if we want to do this, we might as well schedule a modules call, as we did in some other times, and with Miles and some of the involved parties on this specific issue to come to a resolution. Like I don't think neither GitHub or these TSC calls are good to resolve those issues. So at least this is how it seems to me.
Okay, so are you go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Matteo if he was volunteering to set up that meeting.
Yeah, no, I will coordinate with Miles. Like
Okay.
I will ask Miles. Miles, can we set up a modules update so we can come up with a set of recommendation for the TSC to adopt or something like that.
Yeah,
Because
that sounds like a good idea.
this doesn't seems to me an issue that we can discuss and decide about this in a matter. So it's very hard to make an opinion about this stuff. So it's if you follow the discussion, it's very hard. So yeah, I'll send him an email and say, can we do a separate meeting to make this happen? And if there is some coordination to be done, I'll work with him and coordinate about this stuff.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's move on to the next issue, which
Okay,
is
quickly before we move on, I do want to
Yeah.
note one thing that Guy Bedford said here, and that is the modules are flagged, so we do have the ability to acknowledge that the API is not final, and we can start work in some way, right? That's all.
Yes, so that's another option. It's landing this, okay, and there are some changes asked from some people, just some people that placed a big red X, okay, and the discussion is a little bit slowed down. I don't know. We can land it and then see what will happen next. That's another option.
Yeah, I think there's too many people requesting changes at this point to land it as is anyway. So let's move this to,
Yeah, I'll work with Miles and the other party because it has already 195 comments. So okay, perfect. Bye bye.
okay.
No, not bye bye, but
Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is 1495. It has to do with change, basically titles fixed type of ARM version. It seems like in some cases it's compared with an integer instead of the string 7. I think the reason it's on the agenda is that basically it hasn't been moving forward. Ruben added it. I think, looking through the history, Miles had run Sigim against the latest release to get some data based on that to see if it was going to cause breakage, because there's kind of concern. So most people are who've commented in have said they're kind of -0 because they haven't, we're not sure about the breakage. I think, does anybody else have any context on this one?
So it's Semver major, and that's why it needs 2 TSC approvals, but it only has 1. And after asking around a few times, nobody else seems to be willing to weigh in with a plus or minus 1. That's why there are so many plus zeros.
Right. And I guess, if I read on it is people don't seem comfortable enough that it's not going to cause breakage, right? So if
yes, we don't see an obvious problem that we need to fix. So changing that and potentially breaking things seems like we're not willing to do that.
Right. So I'm guessing we either need a bunch of evidence that convinces people that it's not going to be breaking, or not to or it's not going to move forward. I don't know if there's any, I guess I don't think that we're up to a vote here necessarily. It's kind of like, unless people on the call are willing to say, hey, yeah, let's move this forward, it's maybe back with a comment saying, we discussed this.
Well, it just needs 1 more TSC member to +1 it. Because nobody is against it.
Right. So if somebody said, hey, yeah, I think it's a good idea, then they could do that. Otherwise, the comment might be, the way forward is to show that it's not going to cause breakage, right? I mean, I guess from I don't hear anybody jumping in and saying, hey, let's, they'll jump in and say yes. I can post a comment in the issue basically saying, we brought it up. Nobody was comfortable. Maybe if there was more data gathered, Miles finished looking at commented based on the Sigim runs, or Rod had commented it might move forward. But at this point, we really need to wait for one of those two things. Is that a reasonable resolution for?
One other possibility is we can just decide as the TSC that, we give special dispensation to this one doesn't need 2 approvals or something like that, which seems kind of silly. You think one of us would just go in and give it a +1 if we're going to go that far, but that's a possibility, and we have enough people here today to make that decision if we all agree that that's okay.
I'm in favor of what Michael said.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm exactly like, if I was willing to just say yes, then I'd be okay with your proposal, but then I would just say yes. So yeah.
It's so the situation is, I don't understand exactly what that's changing, and what the impact might be of that change.
Right.
So it doesn't seem like there is a lot of us here, and we don't get. And I don't see how that could change, even if we have more data. Okay, this is probably some knowledge of ARM things that I'm very not knowledgeable about. So.
But if we had Miles saying that Sigim was perfectly good and Rod saying, hey, yeah, this makes sense.
This is not being tested on Sigim, very likely, because these are binary modules, probably binary modules problem at worst, and I'm not even sure that we run any of those in Sigim, or many of those in Sigim.
There are some binary modules, and Miles had already commented that he had run Sigim, just hadn't managed to look at the results.
Okay, so yeah, let's wait for Miles.
So I'm just gonna. So this was discussed at the TSC meeting, but people were not comfortable that we have enough data showing that it won't break, won't cause breakage for users. And since it does not seem urgent, since it does not seem to fix an urgent issue, we'd like to wait until Miles can report Sigim results and Rod has a chance comment as well. So I'm just going to add that comment, and I'll remove it, removing TSC agenda for now.
Rod had already commented on the thread.
Okay. So I didn't catch that.
There's a ±0 and a longish explanation.
Okay. So let me revise that. Where? Sorry, I'm just trying to find that. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so it's not the comment from Rod. And the Rod did comment that is asking Ben if there are any other comments, but So I guess what should I say? Okay, I was just going to assuming we're not comfortable we have enough data showing that won't cause breaks for users. Since it does not seem to fix an urgent issue, we're leaning towards until there is more convincing, more data discussion. It should just wait. Is that reasonable?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I'll add that comment. I'm going to remove it from the TSC agenda for now. Okay. Okay, next issue. So pushback added comment to issue pushed back to GitHub discussion. Okay, the next issue is don't abort when a package JSON is a directory. So this is issue 18270. And I think it was Ben who asked that this be added to the agenda.
Yes. So I think just about everyone, I've been reading through this, so I think just about everyone agrees that like it shouldn't abort. But there's disagreement on exactly what it should do. I believe the disagreement is if it should handle this as if the main property of the package JSON is missing, or if it should handle it as if the file didn't exist itself. And I think, well, I think there might be those seem like the main two options to me.
Right, I think that was my read as well. Like it was basically, you can either treat it as if the file doesn't exist or as if the file existed, but it was empty.
I think
So in
most of us, other than Bradley, seem to agree with treating it as not. I think this, yeah, this treats it as if the file isn't there. Pretty sure.
Right.
So there's, I think there's like some consistency stuff that Bradley's worried about. I know it's been suggested that we might be able to make that more consistent in a subsequent PR.
There's also been some back and forth between Bradley and Ben. There's an alternative PR that could probably be looked at.
Do you know where that PR is?
Yeah, it's 18261. So I'll paste that in the chat.
No, oh, no, okay. Oh, so the original PR was by Bradley. Okay, so these PRs are identical, except that Bradley's PR also modifies the package main cache.
So you're saying the main difference is,
or doesn't modify it. I'm actually not, can't really tell.
Right, and I guess the suggestion is adding the caching. Guy's suggestion was you could add the caching in a follow-on PR, right? I guess this is another case where we should we invite Bradley and Ben to the next meeting to discuss, or
I think for this part, this part can be solved, and then we can discuss specifically about doing the cache or not. And that seems like a more appropriate thing to then discuss potentially here.
so resolve which. So what's the suggested way forward?
Probably to merge Ben's stuff because it's pretty much the same thing, except that it doesn't change the cache behavior at this point. And then we should discuss about making the cache behavior consistent separately.
Okay.
Or at least that's something that we could do. Oh, there's a disagreement about authorship of the fix. Okay. I'm not sure what to do about that. We could maybe use the new co-author by feature.
That's a new GitHub feature that will give more than one person authorship for the commit.
I mean, in a case of absolute stalemate there, which I don't think should happen, but some other third party could author the commit and we could put the two people down as authors.
Right. Let's see. Okay, it doesn't sound like we're going to make a decision in this meeting. I guess Jeremiah, would you volunteer to sort of try and work to bring the two of them together with a solution between now and the next meeting? And if we can't do that, take a vote.
I'm not sure I'll be able to, unfortunately.
Any other volunteers to try and do that?
Can you repeat the question?
I'm just seeing if, like, I think we need somebody to volunteer to try and either, clarify that we need to vote on one option or the other, or bring the two, bring Bradley and Ben together, like somehow come up with a proposal that says this is the way we should propose. If Ben and Bradley can agree on that, then we can just move forward. Otherwise, we need to have a vote on which way it should go.
I think they've been pretty clear that they feel they're at an impasse.
Right. So if we were just willing to say one or the other, we could just vote on that, or we need to put together a here's how we think we should move forward. I was just,
I mean, I'm happy to take it on if it's not time sensitive. I like doing these sorts of things, to be honest, but I also I'm not in a good place to do it this week.
Right. Do we think it's time sensitive in terms of like, I don't think we're gonna necessarily vote immediately, do we? Or
The issue that these PRs fix is from August 2016, so it's probably not too time sensitive.
okay, so
Go ahead, just give it to me. I'll do it. I'll try to do it. I'll try to do it this week, but I probably won't get till next week or even the week after.
Yeah, I'll just throw it in there too that package JSON directories are extremely uncommon.
Yeah, this doesn't really seem like, you know, a burning issue, but I guess since, you know, two prolific collaborators are at an impasse, we should probably work out a solution. Just, you know, so we should do this, but it doesn't really seem to be very. Yeah, I agree with Colin that this is not, and Jeremiah, this doesn't seem to be urgent.
put or define two options to vote on. Issue being fixed was open since 2016, so don't think it's super. It's so is this reasonable? Rich will try and work out a solution to define two options. Work out a solution or to define two options to vote on. Issue being fixed was open since 2016, so we don't think it's urgent. Rich will try and get to it this week or next. Is that a?
Don't guarantee that we'll come up with two solutions. I might come up with one. I might come up with two. You know,
okay.
just, you know, because like I might.
How about options? How about options to vote on?
Yeah, I don't even know that we want options. Like I might just come up with one proposal and say, this is really what I think we ought to do. Can we just vote on that?
Okay,
So,
option to vote on.
Yeah. And then if I come up with two, then fine.
Yeah, sure. Okay, sounds good. Okay, next issue is 188. Set up Bluebird or Wikipedia benchmarks for promise performance. I think James had put that on the agenda. We did talk about it 2 weeks ago, if I remember correctly. Unless I got the wrong one. Let's see. Come on. Just loading it here. Right, I think that's the same one. I don't see any major discussion. I think this one really, in my opinion, people let me know if people feel differently though, is that we should just let the team working on the async hooks, you know, async hooks implementation address this, and there's not really anything for us as the TSC to decide at this point. So in that context, I would just take off the TSC agenda at this point. Okay, so I'm not hearing any objections to that, so I will basically do that and take the tag off. I'll make that comment in the issue so it's clear why too. Okay. Okay, moving on to the things under TSC. So it's under strategic initiatives, our regular review. NAPI, I'm happy to report that bcrypt now has an NAPI tag version in the regular, you know, the main repo where bcrypt's being maintained. and Nicola, who's been working with the as part of the NAPI team now, actually is using it at his company in production. So we have, you know, at least one instance where an API is being used in a production application, which is good because it helps satisfy the criteria for experimental. You can read more about it in the link that I provided there. We're also making progress on integration with pre-build. We do expect the PR to, and actually it shouldn't say pre-build, it's probably pre-JIP. So I'll update that, but basically we're expecting a PR to be opened against that repo with the changes that we're suggesting as well. Miles couldn't make it on the module front, but he did provide an update. I won't try and go through that, but you can read through that. I know Rich mentioned he was going to do an update on his. Let me see if we have any others that we should talk about. Just going to open it up.
Two things. My moderation update is in the issue for this meeting, and it's also in the minutes up above in the announcements. But we also removed moderation team from strategic initiatives. It's just an ongoing thing now, and it's not strategic. It's spun up. It's working. Everything's great. So I'll continue to provide updates because that's in our mandate or charter or charge or whatever it's called. But it doesn't have to be part of the strategic updates.
Makes sense. So this is kind of your last update. Okay, and I'm looking in terms of the champions for the other ones, just down to async hooks. So Trevor, is there anything new to report on the async hook side?
Trevor, if you're talking, you are on mute. Oh, well.
I guess maybe we've lost Trevor. And I guess the other one is V8 currency, which I can see, Michael, you're typing in some notes. You want to just give a quick update?
Yes, so V8 6.4 landed on master last week. And I opened yesterday, I think, the PR for V8 6.5, which should be stable on March 6th. And I haven't found any major issue, just with some PowerPC platforms, but only on V8 tests. I don't think there is an issue with Node itself.
Okay. Well, I've asked the team that's maintaining that to take a look, and hopefully they'll comment. And it could just be that they haven't caught up yet. Because how recently was that cut?
2 weeks ago, I think.
Weeks ago. Okay. Well, anyway, it's good. They'll take a look and figure out what's going on. I guess the only thing could be mentioned is that the next Semver miner is going to have 6.2. That's okay. I think that was the ones that we have for which we have champions present. So we might as well move on to the next issue unless anybody else has anything else to add. No. Okay. The next issue is 103 in the security working group, which is basically handle HackerOne org to core triage team. I think it was added just because there was some discussion about whether or not the core triage team would move to the. I'm just trying to look to see. So Colin, actually, you added it. So why don't you take that one?
Yeah. So at the last security working group meeting, we were talking about how we've been using HackerOne for the ecosystem reporting and triaging. It was going well. We still kind of hadn't got a lot of response from the core team, the core security team. We just wanted to get it on the TSC's radar that we're interested in doing this. I think it can largely be taken off of the agenda because Vladimir Deturkim opened TSC issue 474, requesting that he be added to the core triage team. that was before last week's security working group meeting. He hadn't gotten any response, but then within the last 24 hours, he's gotten no objections from Ben, James, and some other people who are part of that team. So I think with him joining that, he can kind of move things along with HackerOne there.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. If he joins that team, understands and participates in the work, and then can kind of help smooth the transition, that makes a lot of sense.
Is there any objections to, like, from the people here? I don't think any of the core security people are here. But are there any objections to using a tool like HackerOne?
So it sounds like I'm just taking notes. So it sounds like Colin. So Colin asked if there were any objections those on the call to using HackerOne. None voiced. Is that fair enough? Okay, that sounds good. I think, yeah, if people chime in on the other issue as well, which, in terms of his request to join, it sounds like there's been at least some positive response, which is probably the best way to try and push this forward. So I'll take the issue off this issue off the agenda. Okay. So we're at the end of the issues tagged for the agenda. Before we move on to the Q&A, is there any other business people want to add in for discussion?
There has been a comment on the ESM the named export issue, and just to say that one of the questions asked to the TSC was about how deprecation are going to be handled with ESM, which is a very long question. So, and I'm already discussing with my house on how to get things going.
Okay.
That was just the update for everybody that's listening and whatever.
Okay, yeah, and it sounds like, that'll be certainly one of the topics of the other call that you try and set up, right? Okay, in terms of question and answer, Jeremiah, do we have any questions on the live stream?
We have a comment. So JDD says he has something with the HackerOne site that it seems to be a bit rough of bugs and perhaps isn't that polished. And he's just a little bit concerned, I guess, how secure it really is for reporting issues. I don't know if we've looked into that yet or not.
Okay, so I guess we can pass that on to the security working group as a comment.
I would say if he could open specific issues at the security working group repo, that would probably be the best way to move forward with that.
Yeah, no, that's a better suggestion. Any other questions?
There is one second. I need to pull something up for it. So Gus Kaplan is asking if this issue, which is per package loader hooks, would properly mitigate APM concerns for tooling. And he said he's mostly asking that to Mateo.
So yeah, actually, this is the issue that you in the yes, per package loader hooks. Yeah, well, definitely, like loader hooks definitely solves the concerns for APM. Okay, that's the way we are supposed to be doing. And this is an RFC, and it's something that we will need to wait on. And I will put on the things to do tomorrow.
Yeah, I will note that I've been around discussions of package loader hooks for some time, and this sort of thing does seem like it is viable for something like that, like per package in particular. Seems potentially viable for that.
Yeah.
1 second. Does someone want to read off the upcoming meeting times while we're waiting?
Sure. So upcoming on the Node.js calendar is the meeting between the TSC and the V8 team, which is following at 1:15. There's a website redesign meeting tomorrow at 10 Eastern. There is the regular NAPI team meeting at 1:30 Eastern tomorrow. And then next week, we have a build work group meeting, a release, build work group meeting scheduled for the 6th at Eastern, the diagnostic working group at 4 Eastern on the 7th. The Node TSC meeting is at the later time at 5 Eastern. And then we roll back into the regular, like the NAPI meeting. And I believe it's a user feedback session on 12 Eastern on the 9th. So that's what's coming up.
Okay. JDD asks also if there's any plans to use NAPI for Node's ESM implementation, in particular, to make things not as V8 centric. And I think I can answer that. So I think there was long-term discussion of that, but there's certainly no short or medium-term plans of switching Node internals to use something like NAPI at this point.
Yeah, I would echo that in that, it's seen as one of the long-term options, but we're not there yet to the point where we started working or looking at that.
Okay, I think that should be also probably end this here. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we should be around next week at a slightly later time slot. Thanks everyone.
Yep. Thanks for everybody listening, and talk to you guys later.
Bye.